Thank you so much for joining us on It's Time today. We are your hosts. I'm Lindsley Donnelly, your citizen scientist and your longevity expert for midlife women.
And I'm Dr. Jen Wagner, physician and holistic performance expert. Welcome to It's Time, powered by Prosper. Welcome back, everybody, to It's Time. Today, we are going to cover something that you are so passionate about, and it's so powerful, and I'm still learning about it. The science behind manifestation.
Yes.
And, it's one of those things that on the surface seems a little woo-woo.
Yes. So this is part of the Science of the Woo series,
yes,
right? We did luck, and this is kind of manifestation.
But again, there is some really, really great science behind it. And so that's what we're going to bring you today, is that there are these concepts that seem woo, that are hard for you and I to embrace.
Without the data.
But when we go and look for the data, because we think they're important concepts.
Yeah.
And so when we go and look for the data, it actually is there. And so they're powerful tools that we can use if we can get over that speed bump it's woo. So let's dive in.
Yes. And I think the reason why you and I got excited about this one, because, working with ourselves or our teams or our kids, this is empowering because it is, you can change your outcome. You can change your actions and your behaviors. And it's a tool to help you do that change. So that's why I think we're drawn to this. It's like, what's in your control? This is one way that it's in your control.
Right. So this is kind of a follow-up to the discussion we had on luck, right? That why do some people seem so lucky? Well, guess what? They're doing a lot of things that set themselves up to have good things happen to them.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is going to be almost a tool to become lucky.
Exactly.
This is like one of the tools in the toolkit that a lot of people who we deem lucky or successful use a lot.
Yes. Yes. And so, maybe just some kind of baseline definition. We're going to talk about manifestation and affirmations.
Okay.
And they're kind of overlapping.
Okay. Will you define those terms for us?
So manifestation is the idea that you can envision an outcome and a process. So you got to do the process steps to get to that outcome in your mind. And then you can, in effect, have those things happen. It's causal. So the underlying belief within manifestation is that you can action towards a vision that's really specific and towards a set of process steps that get you there, and you can drive that outcome. And so to a lot of people, that feels not only woo, but it's almost scary. It's like, well, what if it doesn't work? Then it doesn't, what did I not do right, et cetera. So we can kind of get underneath that. And then affirmations are reflective. So manifestation is outward. You're like, this is what's going to happen. Affirmations is more telling yourself that you can do this thing. I am this thing, or I am doing this outcome. So it's a little bit more just like, where is the lens? Externally going after something in manifestation, affirmations internally, like I am this.
And do you think that you need to do an affirmation before you do your manifestation, or how does that order work?
It kind of do it together. However it feels naturally to you. It's just like, you want to be making sure that you're not just saying, I'm going to go, the Olympic athletes or whatever, always use, I'm going to go win the mogul race. It's, I am also a fast skier. I'm a powerful skier. So it's both those things together.
Right. And I think when we had Benita on, she had such, she talked about that. Why not me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's so powerful, right? Why not me? I'm here. I've trained. I've worked just as hard as all of these women in these lanes next to me.
Yes.
Why not me?
Yes. Yeah. So it's a great example.
Okay.
So if you think about manifestation, and that's the definition of it, what is it that you're actually doing? We just described it. You're describing a specific vision, outcome, and steps to get there. You can't just say, I'm going to go be a rock star and then not practice playing the guitar. You have to really manifest all those steps in between as well, right? So that's kind of what the requirement is for manifestation. And affirmation is specifically that I am this. It's verbiage that gets into your core.
Okay. So how does neuroplasticity play into this?
Yeah. So that's probably the first part of the science part. Right? So we're going to get into what is the science behind why manifestation works. Neuroplasticity being, I think, the most exciting thing that's been discovered in the last 100 years, really, like that you can rewire your brain. How cool is that?
Right.
So the science of neuroplasticity.
So what, like we've talked about many times, is it's that creating those highways in your brain. That is done by thinking and practicing behavior repetitively.
Yes.
So, and it takes, as we all know, like we can go back to the idea of learning to play an instrument, learning to ride a bike. When you're first doing it, you have to think of every little step in it. You have to be very focused, and you can't really think of too many other things. You can't think about what is the piano player doing or what are the drums doing. You're just so focused on the guitar, right?
Yes.
But after those motions start to become more ingrained because those pathways have been really well developed, you can start to it doesn't require the same level of attention to what you're doing, and you can expand that focus. And so the brain starts to rewire and rewire and rewire. The cool thing is, like, the brain kind of sometimes doesn't really know, like, a manifestation from reality if you keep telling it that, which I think is fascinating.
I think that's very cool.
And so, like, if you keep telling yourself, this is going to happen and these are the steps I'm going to take, your brain thinks that is all very real, and it will create those pathways. It doesn't have that filter unless you say it to go, well, that's never going to happen. We're not going to do that. Yeah. So it's like, if you really commit to those thought processes and work on those steps, it will rewire to reinforce that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that example too. And I think there's the nuance of also just telling your brain that it's happening right now, right? Yeah. You're like, I am this already. And so that your brain starts to believe that that is true. So the research behind this that, and we will link to all these studies.
Yes.
It's really cool.
It is really cool.
The research behind this, which says your brain can't tell the difference between a vision and an action, is really compelling.
Right.
It's like your brain says, okay, that's true.
Right.
It's true.
That's the power of visualization. And there's, we have some studies linked in front of us so we can re-reference from you. The study in 2007 that really said the mental visualization, your brain doesn't really care if it's mental visualization or you're doing the physical activity. Yeah. If you do it enough, those neural pathways are laid down that you're actually achieving that goal. And that's why visualization is such a powerful tool. And that's why athletes use it all the time. They visualize making that shot, and they've made that shot 10,000 times in their brain. That doesn't mean they haven't practiced along the way, but it means when they're in the heat of the moment and need to go take that shot, they've already done it 10,000 times. Yeah. And their brain knows exactly, their muscles know what to do because they've practiced all of that.
Yeah. So it's a deep level of visualization. That one of the examples that was kind of mind blowing to me, and I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, but he was an Olympic riflery.
Yeah.
And so for the year before he competed, he had no access to a rifle. He was in a dynamic with his family where he just had no access. But every night for 3 hours, he practiced in his head and he won the gold. Like, it's crazy. What? Right. Like, you don't even feel a rifle for a year and you can do that. So I think that's pretty stunning stuff.
Yes.
But I think, the other thing that you surface is this kind of other nuance to the science is that your brain wants to have a connection between what's happening and what you're envisioning. So if there's cognitive dissonance between what you're visioning and what's actually happening, it's kind of like vibration for your brain. And so it's trying to push you to that action that you're envisioning. I thought that was an interesting study said as well. Your brain thinks it's real and then also knows actions are real, but there's something when they're not connecting that is making your brain kind of vibrate and push you to that action as well. Which I thought was pretty cool.
Super cool. Okay. So then let's talk about the second part of this, which is how we focus.
Yes. So this one was kind of new news to me, that there actually even is a body of research around it and a specific area in your brain, your reticular activating system. So am I saying that correctly?
Yep. You got it.
Your RIS. So there is actually a piece of your brain's physiology, which is meant to be filtering for what it is you're thinking about. And that's your reticular activating system. And people, I think, always use that example of when you're in the car market and you want to get a red Macan, you see red Macans all the way. Right. And we've been living through this with our kid right now with cars, but it is, like, you just end up seeing the thing that you're thinking about all the time. And so that is the physiology of your brain.
Yeah.
It creates that for you.
Absolutely. And so it almost becomes subconscious. It's like you don't spend necessarily more focused time looking for them on the road. Right. You just happen to notice them more. They've always been there.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like you just end up noticing more around you what you've been focused on outside of that moment.
Yes. So your brain does that work for you. So if you're trying to envision something, that's the way your brain is helping you go out and see it in the actual world.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of cool. All
right. And then the power of belief. And this is a hard one for me. It's always been hard.
Yeah. Is that if you believe it to be true, or faith, it feels abstract. You can't really touch and hold on to that.
Yes.
But the underlying science of it is that kind of idea that your brain tries to mirror in action what it's seeing. So that's the underpinning science between why is belief powerful. It's really that, kind of like with luck, your brain is trying to make you do the action that you're thinking about or believing in. So
And I think part of that is kind of making sure those affirmations are positive and flipping that mindset. A lot of us have, our culture loves negativity, loves turmoil and drama. Like, that's what sells. And so we tend to think of what are the negative things instead of saying, if this works, it's going to be, what's the positive part? We tend to focus on the negative or the failure component. And so we have to really, at least for me, consciously flip this script to say, to take that out. Like, I'm going to take this new position. What if I fail? Is the first thing that comes to my mind. And I'm like, no, this is how I'm going to succeed. These are my steps that I'm going to succeed. I'm not even going to entertain that. Of course it's there. I'm a realist, but I'm going to focus on the steps I need to take to succeed, not avoiding failure. And those are two different things.
They're very different things. It's hard to rewire. I mean, it's that negativity bias that we talk about all the time in our mindset work. We're just wired to be fixers. We're wired to look for what's wrong and we're wired to look for danger. Forcefully recalibrate that to say, I'm going to look for success. It's a physical effort.
It is. It is. And I think this is, there's some pretty good research on gender differences here, that, and it's shown up in how people are promoted and getting to the next step is that while doing the same job, oftentimes men traditionally have been more comfortable saying, I want that. And that's what I'm working towards.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of women saying, they don't say, I want that. They say, I don't want to fail at what I'm doing. And so people their aspirations and their goals may not even be realized because they're not visualizing that to themselves. They're not manifesting that to themselves. They're manifesting, I don't want to fail.
Right. And I mean, I know we've talked about this in the gender differences with work before, but it's still stunning to me that men will read a job description and say, oh, I can do 2 out of those 10 things.
Right.
I'm qualified. Women will read it and be like, I can't do 3 of those things. So I'm not qualified at all. Even though they could do 7 of the 10.
Right. Right.
So you have to have these anecdotes in your head so that you give your brain permission to rewire itself.
Right.
In your favor.
Right.
And to serve you.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
So I think the other science that's kind of connected to that same power belief is the placebo effect, which is very overlapping, right?
Yes.
It's like you kind of believe something and then that happens. And that's the placebo effect that we've talked about before. I think we talked also about the cognitive dissonance. And so your brain starts to say, I want these to be aligned. So let's get going on that behavior set. I think there's a ton of research, you bring it up, especially with athletes, around the science of goal setting.
Yes.
And so I think the reason just to touch on that part here is that, again, it's not an abstract thing. Like the people who put this tool to work do not say, I manifest myself as a gold medal athlete. They say, I manifest myself winning the gold because I do the following steps in my race.
Correct.
And the following steps in my practice routine. Right?
Correct. And I think that process component is so important. It's not just, I want to make $1 million next year. It is, I am going to do X, Y, Z to make $1 million.
Yes. And one of the ways that I was playing around with this when we were trying to sell our houses back in 2021, I did get specific and write. We sold our house for X amount of dollars by this date. And I wrote it down every single morning for about 90 days. We sold our house within $5,000, 2 houses for whatever price I'd named within $5,000 and within like 4 days. Yeah. It's not magic, right? I mean, we were doing a lot of work.
We were doing a lot of work, right?
It's not like I was just sitting there writing that down. We were working hard with our realtors. We were working hard with the selling story. It just kind of kept going. Like subconsciously, my brain was letting me know I needed to do these actions if I wanted to hit that target.
Right. So I think, and what you said about writing it down. Yeah. That's a really key component to doing this work. And this is work, but it is writing it down and writing it down again and writing it down again. Yeah. And refining the process to get there. Yeah. Because some things we try are not going to work, right? And we're going to have to reevaluate. It doesn't mean that just because you say, I'm going to win a gold medal and these are the steps that I'm going to do, that it is smooth, right? It's like there can be injury, there can be setback. You cannot reach a certain step when you want to, but that doesn't mean you throw it all away. It means you refine. And I love this. I think it was Roger Federer, the tennis player. He was being interviewed and he had lost a couple matches, which was unusual for him at the time, kind of in his prime. And they're like, you don't throw away everything that he's done. Right. You go back and you make little changes. Yes. Right. Yeah. You don't give him a brand new serve or a brand new strategy. No, he's been incredibly successful. A small speed bump says, okay, this is a really good opportunity to let's go back and look at the little things and what can we redo to continue on this pathway towards this goal.
I think one of the things that this is underpinning is that you have to take responsibility for articulating what you want.
100%.
Right. So if you're going to manifest something, you better know what it is you want to manifest, because if you don't, you will manifest the thing you're afraid of. I mean, that is naturally what you're telling your brain.
So huge.
I think, and that's kind of was one of the big ahas when was going through all this research. It's like, if you say something like, I am not going to make money. I'm not, your brain is like, okay, that's what you want. That's what we're going to do. And you have to take ownership that you're telling your brain something one way or the other, right? Either what you want to do that's positive or what you're afraid of, right? And it's going to happen.
I mean, it's the default to our negative bias.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like we need, and again, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about this like it's easy. It's really hard to do.
It's weird. It's like rewiring a muscle pattern. It's starting to write with your left hand instead of your right hand. Like it's going to feel weird. It does feel weird still.
I think the easiest place for me to reflect back on how to do this for those that either have children or have people that they're mentoring in their lives is we do this for them all the time.
Yes.
Right? Like, we're both in this phase of kids picking colleges. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Not where do I think you should go? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's set that goal and let's reverse engineer what needs to be done starting today to get there.
Right.
And it's like, so we do that all the time for people around us. We're just really hesitant to do it for ourselves. And I think some of it is the fear that we don't exactly
you don't get it.
That you don't get there.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes it shifts enough that you end up where you're supposed to be. And it's pretty close by.
Yeah, in a better spot.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
So
I like the goal setting theory too. So, I think those are the kind of science pillars. Like, so, we were excited to talk about the topic because it is a tool that empowers you to have a better life. And so we're always filtering things for what makes women's lives better now and for the long haul. This is a tool that you can put to work.
Okay. So how do we put it into practice? Like we've talked a lot about do this and do this and do this. And again, like can leave us feeling, okay, now I have like 20 other things on my to-do list that I need to go do. Right. So how do we do this in an executable?
Yeah. So, when we talked about the mindset overarching pillar, we talked about what you can do in the morning and what you can do at night. And I think that's an easy entry place into this is to give yourself 5 or 10 minutes in the morning and at night to ask yourself what you want and then write it down. You've explained this to us many times about the science about what happens in your brain when you write it down. So if you have nothing more than 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, do that. Write down what you want and then write down what the steps are to get there. And that's your manifestation and your exercise. On the affirmation side, I think the most powerful thing you can do is to start to catch yourself thinking. Like, I am positive, put it in there, and then interrupt the negative.
I think learning to identify those inner voices is really important and learning to course correct when they start taking over.
Yeah, because everyone has them.
Well, it's our nature. Right? It's kept us safe. There's a point to have those, but we live in a society now where they've just gotten so loud that they overshadow the positive often.
Yeah. So hearing those voices, I think a lot of the toolkit stuff we talked about, like the gratitude journaling, gratitude work, you can put that one to work. If you like that tool, you can be grateful for what you have right now that's in line with what you're wanting to manifest, and you can be grateful in advance. Act like as if, like, thank you for, I'm so appreciative of, and whatever it is you're manifesting.
Yeah. What about sharing this with others?
Well, I think there are kind of two components to that. One is if you've got somebody who is trying to, kids, family members trying to set goals, you can help them see that there's some science behind manifesting and how to do this. But I think the other thing is to just be mindful to share any of your aspirations and hopes with people who hold your heart close, right? Like, you don't need any negative voices telling you can't do it. You don't need reminders about every single terrible thing that could happen. So I wouldn't share it with people who don't really have that kind of soft hold space for your hopes and dreams.
And I do think that it can be really powerful. And I know you hold that space for me, that I bring you these ideas. And it's not just a blind cheerleader.
Yeah.
It is, you challenge me. You say, okay, how are you going to get there? What's winning look like? I mean, I think that's a question we ask each other a lot.
You'll push me on that. Like, what are you thinking?
Okay. So we want to do this. Great. That's our goal. What does winning look like? Like, what does that goal look like? And then how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
And I think, and again, it's rewiring those, we didn't get to step 1 as quickly as we thought. Okay, well, why not? And let's rework and now we can get to step 1.5 closer.
Yes.
And faster because we've reevaluated and continuing to say, this is actually what we did accomplish.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on what we didn't.
Yes. So there's a way to improve and be realistic and authentic without being negative, right?
Yes.
There's a way to celebrate your wins and then say, and opportunity learning, go forward is this.
Yes. And I think that creates such positive energy. And I think we're often surprised at everything we did accomplish when we look at it that way. So I think as part of that is, we have our manifestation we have our affirmation, and we have our gratitude. But sometimes just make a win column.
Oh, yeah.
And don't compare it to the loss column. Just make a win column and say, even if things didn't work out exactly, you still had wins in these areas and can grow and move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that that is so important. And that is a lesson that you have taught me to focus on so many times, because it's so easy to fall into the comfort zone of what didn't happen.
Right. Because that's what's been powering us up for so long. Yep. So, I think sharing it with people who are in your camp is critical. And then sharing it with people who are open to the idea that they can control outcome is also critical.
Absolutely. So we invite you to try to practice, join us. And it's a practice. Yeah. Join us and, start writing down those goals, writing down your manifestations of what you want, the process to get there.
And affirming it.
Yeah. And being grateful that you get the opportunity to do it.
Yes. And so we'll link also, I think, into the show notes. We were talking about this with some of our workshop folks. We'd pull together a list of people who are publicly high profile and had put manifestations to work, and they talk about it and how they got to their success.
Yes.
So we'll link to that. It's like 100 women over the age of 50. That was what we were filtering for, who are on the public record saying, I use this tool and here's how I used it.
Yes.
So that could be good to have in your mind.
Super helpful to see real life examples. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom on this with us.
Thank you for sharing yours.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us here today. If you liked what you heard and you got some tips on how to live better right now and for the long haul, please help us reach more midlife women. Please share and rate and like this show. And we can't wait to continue the dialogue with you on our next episode. Until then, thank you. It's time.